with Prep Baseball Report, PBR, here in the state of Alabama, also a high school coach at Huntsville High School. Good morning, David. How are you? Welcome to Inside the Locker Room.
Doing fantastic. Appreciate you having me on. Be pretty cool to get on here and talk about some baseball things going on.
A lot going on.
Hope you guys are doing well also.
David, before we get started, you got to know this. Dad, when he came to Alabama in the 60s, he coached a little baseball. He was a pitching coach. And he had a doubleheader one day, and he had 2 perfect games thrown in one day, back to back. Have you ever heard of that? And then I think he retired after that. So if you ever need any advice on pitching or a guy to come speak, 2 perfect games. Have you ever heard of that, David?
Yeah, 2 no-hitters. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, it wasn't perfect. No, 2 no-hitters. I'm sorry. I'm giving him too much credit.
John Larson, when he does that.
I have not heard of that. That's pretty impressive, especially from a basketball coach, right?
That's right. Davis, tell us about PBR. I know you're the state director of the state of Alabama. You guys have put events on. Just kind of tell us what you guys are doing for all these kids, not only in the state of Alabama, but across the Southeast.
We're a scouting service, and what we do throughout the state, and we are predominantly based just within the state. And I'll get to our East Coast Sox event that we had last Thursday in a minute. But we're a scouting service that we run events, we run tournaments, we run showcases throughout the state, and there are over 900 colleges that subscribe to what we do. And it's not just in Alabama. We're in 41 states in Canada, and we just launched a partnership with the British Baseball Corporation. So we're overseas now. And what we do is, as I said, and I'll go through as quick as possible. Kids come to events that we have, and we put them. We have a couple different type of events. One of them are showcase only events. And another type is a showcase plus gameplay, where we have games that follow the workout in the morning. All of our workouts are the same. It's a pro-style workout where players will run the 60-yard dash. Players will then go to the cage, get loose, will get their exit velocity off the barrel. They'll move from there. They will go and get their on-field BP, their on-field batting practice. But then they'll go there and go from there when everyone's gone through, and they'll go through their defensive workout. Now, after that, the position players, they're done there. Then if you're a pitcher, you stay and throw a bullpen, or if there's a game, you stay and throw in the game. Now, with all of that being said, what happens is after the event, players can subscribe for a free profile. They do that before the event takes place.
Right.
They subscribe for a free profile, and then after the events, their profile begins to get populated with stats, with videos. When those kids run the 60, we obviously get a time on them. We laser time them. We get a time on them. We also video it. When they go to get their exit velocity, we don't video that. We simply get the number. If they're 94 miles an hour off the tee, that's their exit velocity. They then move to the on-field batting practice portion of it, where we evaluate them. We take notes. We evaluate them, and it's videoed. And then their defensive workout. And if you're an infielder, you obviously would go through the infield portion of the workout. If you're a catcher, the catching portion, and the outfielders would do the same as the outfield portion. And then we evaluate. We get their arm strength. If a guy is 92 across the infield from shortstop, that's his infield velocity. Or if he's from the outfield, we get catcher's pop times. And then all of the defensive workouts are videoed as well. Then, after the workout, for the next few days up to a week, all of that stuff that I just mentioned, the stats, and they also get a profile photo when they check in, and their videos all get populated onto their profile. And then that becomes accessible to all of the coaches, as I mentioned, over 900 that subscribe to what we do. So it's really just a one-stop shop for college coaches. We also do a lot of tweeting during the event. I think from the East Coast Sox event last Thursday, I think we had like 37 tweets that went out during or immediately after the event. These college coaches, they follow us on Twitter. They reach out to us during the event, after the event, and this is not meant to be a sales pitch, but, as you are aware, the NCAA has a dead period for recruiting through the end of July. And so none of the college coaches in any sports can get out and recruit, and let's take baseball specifically. This is when baseball recruiting is at its highest right now. That's why the travel ball scene is the way to go, because during high school season, which I love the high school baseball component, but during the high school season, the coaches can't get out, number one, until March the 1st, and then they have their own seasons going on. So that's why the summers are so important for players. And, as we all know, we're going through unprecedented times. And it's the COVID-19 pandemic has really affected numerous things, and one of those being recruiting. And these players that are playing summer ball, they're not getting eyes on them as they have in the past. So these coaches, one of the only and one of the few ways that coaches can see players now are through profiles and through these things. So it makes what we do even, and again, we're not trying to take advantage of any situation, but it makes what we do even more so important now, because those profiles are very important, because those college coaches can go on, they can look for a specific player, or they can go on our website and search for left-handed pitchers in the 2022 class, and it pulls up kids that we've seen and kids that are in our database. So I don't know, got a little long-winded there, but that's what we do. That's what we do there, throughout the state.
Dad and I, being former coaches, I coached at South Carolina Wake Forest. I was on your Zoom call with you the other day, and one of the things that I appreciated that you said, because a lot of parents have dreams that aren't achievable for their child, is you said whatever you do, we're going to be completely 100% honest as to what we put down there, because you don't want to lose your credibility with these college coaches whose life depends. I mean, it's how they put food on their table, is to sign players that are good enough to help those guys win. So they know when they pick up the phone and call David Sharp with PBR Baseball, you're going to tell them, or if they read something, they're going to see exactly where they were. Not to say a kid couldn't improve. A 2024 kid, which my son is, I'm glad he did it. Now it gives him some numbers there, something to shoot for to improve his profile, because he's got plenty of time to do it. I just want to get you to comment about how important it is for everything to be accurate.
And I'm glad you brought that up, to give you a reason to talk about it, because number one, and I say this, and I said this in the Zoom meeting the couple nights before the event, is our validity is on the line every time we speak to a college coach. And, we talk to multiple college coaches daily, about players, about different things. And, let's take, for instance, I call, I'm talking to Coach Bohannon at Alabama, and I tell Coach Bohannon, hey, man, we had this guy last week, and he was 92, 93, had a filthy slider. He's a guy that you need to look at. Well, then he goes to see him, and he's 84, 85, 86. Well, and nothing against 84, 85, 86, but I think we all know number one, what it takes to play college baseball. Number two, what it takes to play in the SEC. And if you don't believe that, look at last night's draft and how the SEC dominated that first round of the SEC draft. But at the same time, Coach Bohannon is not going to call me anymore because I told him this guy was 92, 93. He goes to see him, he's 84, 85. Well, he's wasting his time. And I don't mean that disrespectful, but
sure,
he's wasting his time going to see a guy that's not an SEC-type guy. And then why would he reach out to me again? And we're big on the honesty part because, we all hear of kids, man, this guy's 92, this guy's 92, and then he shows up at our event and he's 86, 87. And again, that's a quality arm. Everybody's caught up on that velocity number, but it's not all about that number. There's pitchability, how a kid's, how he projects ceiling wise. But our validity, the coaches respect what we do, and that's not. Please understand, that's not a reflection of me. I'm not saying that in an arrogant, egotistical way. Prep Baseball Report, the brand, has a great name, and it's our job to continue that brand in this state. And so, again, as you mentioned, it is important for us to be perfectly honest when we put in those profiles. Did he run a 6.8 or did he run a 7.360? We can't move that either way. We've got to be completely honest.
Yep, Dad.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is I recruited basketball for 38 years, and baseball is more difficult. And the reason it is because you got the pro. You're not sure whether the guy's going to go pro or not, whether he's going to be good enough. He's on the borderline. You got a numbers problem when you're trying to recruit, and it's very, very confusing, very difficult. So this is really great, I think, and I just think that you have to have some idea. And the other factor too is you can save money by doing this. If you take a team that's below, the big leagues, the big college kids or college teams, maybe below the Alabamas and Auburns, you don't have a lot of money, and this can be your choice of who you're trying to get without spending a lot of money.
That's correct, and and I know players probably get tired of hearing this, but in baseball recruiting, obviously there's only 11.7 scholarships, and that problem's even magnified this year because of the COVID-19 and the NCAA giving players giving that year back last year, which I think is the right thing to do. But then you've also got these high school players that have signed to come in, so the rosters are even more loaded with numbers this year, and colleges are having to abide by that 11.7. Well, and I say this to a lot of people, parents really sacrifice a lot, and parents don't care where scholarship money comes from. So if you're a baseball player, and I use them because it's not full scholarships, if you're a baseball player and you're a high academic guy, you may be able to get half a scholarship, or even more so academic scholarship, 80% scholarship or whatever, and then you get that 30 or 35% baseball scholarship. You combine those two together, you very well may be looking at a full ride. And I can promise you, there's no parent that cares where that money comes from, as long as there's some money to help pay for that schooling. So that's another thing, Coach, that goes into that 11.7 number. That there's some academic money there possible as well, and so it's very important for these kids to maintain their academic progress.
Yeah, sure it is.
We're talking with David Sharp, with the director of PBR Baseball here in the state of Alabama. David, is in the state here, because I'm just kind of getting into all this stuff, Alabama and Auburn, it seems like they're taking kids pretty early. I know there's the kid from Hoover I did see throw this weekend, Walter Ford, who, it's a no-brainer as far as Alabama offering him early, but it seems like earlier and earlier and earlier. And I think these jobs are tough because we don't have the Hope Scholarship. They had their hands tied a little bit, maybe other than the Vanderbilts and the Mississippi States and those guys. Are they trying to keep these guys in state? Is that why they're offering them so early? Because it's critical for them to evaluate the kids here in this state and try to keep them here for money reasons?
Well, you mentioned a very good point there. Our state, and our Division I schools and the rest of them, they are recruiting. It's an uphill battle for them because all of our neighboring states have, the equivalent of a Hope Scholarship or something else. But to get to your point, you're right. Baseball recruiting has gotten earlier and earlier and earlier. And, I can't say that that's a good thing. And in my line of work, I don't know if I should say they're not, but I don't know if that's a good thing that you're getting 23s, and even more so, there's a couple 24s in the state that have already committed.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned with Walter, you can look at him and see the bat. You can look at him and see he's a low 90s guy on the mound. He's going to be a sophomore. He's a special talent. He's got to continue to work. But, these coaches know that they're in a very difficult situation. And most of these college coaches that I speak with, and I guess it's 100% of them, they don't like recruiting these kids so early either. But here's the problem. If they don't do it, someone else is going to.
That's right.
And they're forced to, and that's a bad deal. I'm going to be honest with you, because if you get a 23 or a 24 kid committed, that's 3 or 4 years down the road. Number one, how's that kid going to progress as a human being? Is he going to continue doing what he's supposed to off the field? Number two, is he going to get lazy, or is he going to continue to work on the field and continue to get better? Number three, he doesn't even know who his teammates are going to be in 3 or 4 years from if he commits. And then number 4, the coaches may not even be there. So it's a very fine line where I think coaches are forced to do it. And I don't like to use that word, but they've got to, or they're going to miss out. They get in too early, they get in too late. A kid's already committed somewhere. So I think their hand is sort of forced to do that.
Yep, Dap.
I don't really have anything. Is this pretty much well known among all college people, and is it just well known what you do in the state of Alabama? It's just well known everywhere.
We're in 41 states, including Canada, and Alabama. We've been around for about 11 years in the country. Alabama, we launched in April of 2018. So we've only been in Alabama for about 2 years. And yes, the college coaches, they're very aware of Prep Baseball Report. There are also other services out there that colleges use as well. But yes, they utilize this. And again, this is not said to be in an arrogant, egotistical way. But our phone, we get calls every day from junior colleges, NAIA. Those guys that are good enough to go to Alabamas and the Auburns and those things. Those guys, for the most part, they're gonna be seen because their talent level just jumps out at you. But one of the big things that we really pride ourselves in is these kids that may be going junior college or NAIA or Division II or III. This type of service really helps those type of guys too. Not that it doesn't help out these big time guys going to Alabama, Auburn, as we've already mentioned, but it also it basically it's the all levels, junior college and everything.
We're talking with David Sharp with the Prep Baseball Report. David, tell everybody about the development. I was watching the draft last night. I think a lot of the guys that were the first few picks weren't really highly rated. Some of them weren't even maybe drafted out of high school. So they got in the program and they start developing. Just where do you see the biggest jump maybe from on the mound, throwing to hitting, power, those things? Where's the biggest jump? What age range is it, David?
Usually, and again, I coached at Huntsville High School and retired with 25 years, and was able to retire from the state and then do this. We, as a high school coach, we saw the biggest jump from their sophomore to their junior year.
Yeah.
From a physicality standpoint, they begin to just to naturally, fill out. And that translates a lot of times to more power off the bat, more velocity out of the arm on the mound or wherever. That's where we saw it. But kudos to these college coaches, and I've said this numerous times already. But the SEC is filled with talent, and that talent is not just self-made. That talent, there are some. I mean, the level of coaching in the SEC is incredible. And going back to last night, you mentioned it, and we sit here and watch the draft, through and through. My son's roommate is actually Tanner Burns, so we had a little vested interest there with Tanner. I'm glad he went there to the Indians. But me too. But they talk about, these guys weren't drafted. These guys weren't drafted out of high school, or if so, they were drafted low. A lot of those guys, they become a late draft pick, like Tanner, for instance. Tanner was a 40th or 38th round draft pick out of high school to the New York Yankees. And Tanner was, I don't want to say dead set on going to Auburn, but these high-profile players coming out of high school, their agents or their advisors, they talk with these clubs and they tell them the number that it's going to take to sign them. And, as you probably are aware, each pick has a slot value. And a lot of these big-time high school guys, they have such bargaining power that they can put their figure above a slot value. Like if you pick me 8th and the slot value's $5 million, well, you tell them, hey, I'm not going to sign for less than $7.5 million. Well, they're going to pass on you. But like Tanner, the Yankees took a chance on him in the 36th round or 38th round coming out of high school just because why not? Take a shot. And so a lot of those guys, they sort of priced themselves out of that first, second, third round coming out of high school because they've got that 4-year guarantee to go to Alabama or LSU or wherever it may go. So that's not that it's deceiving, but that's what happens a lot of times with high school guys. But again, you look at what's going on in the college game. A lot of professional coaches are coming back and are coaching in college, and these guys that go to these big-time schools, and even the guys that go to other schools, they're getting quality coaching, and it shows there in the draft. Because, again, you mentioned a lot of guys went from being undrafted, like Justin Foskey at Mississippi State. When I was at Huntsville, he played for Grissom, our biggest rival, and he didn't get drafted out of high school, but yeah, he goes 14th last night. So that's speaks a lot for the quality of coaching he's getting.
Yeah, I think these colleges now with these facilities and all they have, they're almost better off going there getting education. They probably have better training facilities in the minor leagues, don't they, David?
You know what? I've been told this several times. And after going through Alabama's new stuff, Coach Bohannon and them showed me around there, and I'm going to go to Mississippi State this coming year because I've got one of our former pitchers, Christian McLeod, who might be a first-round draft pick out of Mississippi State next year. I'm going to go over there and see that. You know, I was told that when these guys get drafted out of the SEC, it's like getting a demotion, man. You know, when they leave where they're at in Tuscaloosa or wherever it may be, and they go to a single-A team in Jupiter, Florida, and that's a demotion for them,
yeah.
You know, because of everything they've had at Alabama or wherever they are. And also, you know, those SEC, let's take, for instance, Justin Foskey at Mississippi State, middle infielder, third baseman, can really handle the bat. Well, you know, if you're in the SEC and you're seeing Friday, Saturday, Sunday arms, you know, Asa Lacy, Tanner Burns, you know, Prelip at Alabama, you keep going on and on. You see these Friday night arms in the SEC, I mean, that's about the equivalent of a double-A arm right there.
Yeah.
So when you come out, you're prepared to begin your journey towards the big leagues.
No doubt. Well, David, we appreciate it. Tell everybody how they can get on y'all's website, find out where your showcases are, if you got events coming up that maybe they want to get their son involved and get them started. Tell them where they go.
Go to prepbaseballreport.com/Alabama. That's prepbaseballreport.com/Alabama. And then there'll be a list of our showcases and our, you know, and our website's fairly in depth and gives you a lot of things to see there. Before we go, I want to thank both of you for having me on. We really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about what we do, and we appreciate your support of Prep Baseball Report in the state.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
All right, there's
Yes,
David
sir.
Sharp with Prep